Welcome to another one of my videos for the SAT reading section. In this video, we are going to be looking at stylistic devices and their usage. These are the general literary devices that I'm going to be looking at across this video. And disclaimer, this is going to be a mainly theoretical video because the questions that ask about literary devices often ask for the purpose of that literary device or how it adds to the text, and for that you just need to know what the purpose or what are the possible purposes of each literary device, and that is precisely what we're going to cover in each video. In this video, there is no specific way you need to approach this question. You just need to know what each literary device is and why or how they're used, and that's what we're going to do. So these questions are going to ask what technique is used to highlight something in a particular person or in a particular phenomena. How does the author emphasize a point? The comparison or the particular literary device serves to highlight, serves to do what? The repetition of a word serves to do what? And it's very basic, straightforward questions, really. The first literary device that we're going to look at is allusion. So this is when you reference a literary piece. So I might say To Infinity and Beyond, referencing Toy Story. I might say I Have a Dream, referencing Martin Luther King. So allusions often help authors, help readers understand the author's ideas, and it often adds meaning. So if I would use I Have a Dream, I am adding gravity to my issue by referencing a very serious speech. I might be adding meaning, and I might be adding and in a way comparing it to the struggles that were described during that speech. And you might want to also use it to make a piece memorable, because these are very well-known references. You might use it to make sure that the piece sticks to someone's memory, or it may be used to conjure a certain emotion or feeling. So these are the purposes. So if they ask you, well, why does the author allude to this? The reasons will generally be embodied by one of these three. Now, another literary device, it's more to do with tone really, is sarcasm. So you use sarcasm to point out how ridiculous something is. So I stubbed my toe terrific, or what I'm trying to say is it's actually very annoying. So the tone here is sarcastic. You might use it to insult someone or their ideas. You might use it to add humor. Now, a satire is similar in the sense where if we say something is a satire, it means it is mocking something, or it is showing the ridiculous nature of something. Like many people would say Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman is actually a satire on the pursuit of the American dream. And so it is a mocking social commentary on the pursuit of the American dream. So you just need to know what satirical means. It is a sarcastic take on something, because they might use the word satirical instead of sarcastic. Sometimes the purpose of a literary device will depend on the tone in which it is used. So here I mean universal basic income, not basic universal income. Apologies for that. But if in passage 1 includes a speech saying we will provide everyone with universal basic income, and passage 2 repeats this but also adding, of course, since money grows on trees. So the purpose over here of alluding to that is to point out to the ridiculous nature of it, because here the tone is sarcastic, and therefore it kind of defines the purpose of the allusion. It is just to simply mock the idea of being able to provide everyone with a universal basic income. So the tone will sometimes play a very important part in determining the purpose of a particular literary device. So it is very important that you always take tone into account when you're answering these kind of questions. Another literary device is exaggeration or hyperbole. It is generally used to emphasize a point. So the bag weighs a ton. The question might be, how does the author emphasize the weight of the bag? This is by exaggerating the bag's weight and saying that it weighed a ton. If you look at the song Grenade by Bruno Mars, he says, I would take a grenade for you, throw my hand on a blade for you. I would sing it, but you don't want it. Let's just leave it, and you don't want to hear me singing. And so, right, so he uses these exaggerations to display the intensity of his emotion, the intensity of his love, to emphasize it. And that is precisely what exaggerations do. If it is in a sarcastic tone, however, it might be to mock something. This is the fourth one out of the 7 in the list. Sometimes the SAT talks about emphasis as as a device by its own, so it is putting extra weight on a point. It is generally used to further the main point. You might emphasize something to make sure something is clarified, or you might emphasize it because it is very important to understanding the rest of the passage. And so these are all possible purposes for the emphasis of something. Repetition is often a tool used for emphasis. So I might say he was a friend, a dear friend. That emphasizes how close he was to me. So the purpose of repetition is often emphasis, and we emphasize things because it is important to clarify something, or we are trying to further a given point, or it is important that the reader understands it. Now, understatement is pretty antithetical to an exaggeration. It's the opposite. So one might say, was anyone hurt? And the person might reply, nah, only one fatality, yeah? So the second person, of course, or third, is downplaying this incident. He's underscoring it. So this may illustrate, we use an understatement to illustrate the character's thoughts or character, essentially, or personality of that given character. For example, Todd downplaying the incident shows he's pretty numb to death, or it's a very common thing that he's seeing, and that might be the purpose of it, to show that. It may also illustrate emotions or feelings like guilt and discomfort, or the lack of it. If used in a sarcastic tone, an understatement can also be used to mock something. Moving on, you also do need to know what contrast is. It is used very common. Sometimes it is just simply used to contrast two ideas or two characters. So you might say the former represented the sweetness of strawberries, while the latter the sourness that fungi ushers. So here we're using it to contrast the two ideas or the characters. We are saying one was really sweet, a nice person, while the other, well, not someone you would really want to be around. And you might also use it to emphasize something. For example, let's take the deafening silence that uses two opposite words together, or is an oxymoron, and how it emphasizes the silence. We could say the deafening silence or the pin drop silence. Now, the deafening silence is much more powerful. The contrast just emphasizes how disturbing the silence was, and therefore the contrast over here actually helps us emphasize the point of the passage or the point of the line. We may also use comparisons. Now, sometimes this is to allow the reader to picture something. So, emerald eyes helps us picture green, probably shining eyes. It might be to add extra emphasis to a particular characteristic. So, I might say her tan skin shimmered with the luster of polished gold. So, I'm emphasizing the shine or the luster of a tan skin. And it might also be to provide a simplified explanation of something. This will often be the case for your database or science passages as such. So I might say the Bose-Einstein condensate is another state of matter, like gas. So by comparing Bose-Einstein condensate to gas in a manner, I'm saying, okay, they're pretty similar. They're both states of matter. I'm trying to help you understand what the Bose-Einstein condensate is principally. It's just another state of matter, and for that I've also included gas in there. These are just a few things that it's better to know about. They're generally not asked for, but it's good to know about. Alliteration, they often are used to. Alliteration is when you begin a set of words all with the same letter, so it is often to add emphasis on that particular part and create a mood. Here you will notice that emphasis is a very big reason for literary devices. So once, if it's emphasizing something, all you really need to know is what it is emphasizing, which is often given by the literary device, and therefore it is very easy to answer these questions. So if I said Rickety rode riding a ravenous river, it is emphasizing the dangerous road across the river, and it's essentially creating this mood of fear and uncertainty. Sometimes they may use cliches. These are very trite, overused phrases that they've lost meaning. They may do so to convey something very simply. Sometimes, though, a cliche may be used very innovatively, very differently, and this is generally done to emphasize a particular point. So keep an eye out for cliches used in a different manner than normal, than its average use, if I should say so. Sometimes you might see that foreshadowing is a reason for using a literary device. So I might say the wind's laugh penetrated through the silent night, and the story might describe a serial killer and end with a murder. So the wind's laugh could be foreshadowing that murder. So the purpose of it would be to foreshadow the dark events to follow. And finally, the wind's laugh is an example of personification, because I'm giving a non-living thing lifelike characteristics, and that's another literary device it's good to know about it. Often we use foreshadowing as personification, as a way of foreshadowing or creating a distinct mood. With that, in the next video, we're going to be answering opinion questions, or more specifically, exploring techniques to answer questions based on opinion of the narrator or a character within the passage. So answering questions that ask about how would the character A in passage A react to the idea of assisted suicide, maybe, or how would they react to the idea of women working. So you generally have questions like this, and we'll explore how to answer such questions in the next video. With that, thank you.